Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm Lex Gray. This is a follow-up to a video I made a couple days ago, and it has been getting a lot of engagement, and that is something I love to see. Here's a comment I picked from the video. From RM83, let's look at the second half. Could you talk about your thoughts on games or systems that work well for solo play, even though they weren't originally designed for it? Like what happens with Fate and Powered by the Apocalypse. Also, what about what sometimes happens with rules-heavy games when playing them solo? In my case, they end up disrupting the narrative, although I know others prefer and enjoy that level of complexity. So let's answer the first part where they ask, could you talk about some thoughts about your thoughts on games or systems that work well in solo play? Well, Fate and Powered by the Apocalypse are two of my most favorite games out there. Systems. Right off the bat, he or she, they point out two systems that are perfect for solo play. Now, there's another that I've also played on this channel. Ironsworn is a great example. Maze Rats, Karen RPG, dozens of others that I've talked about. World of Dungeons, which I just did a solo dungeon crawl. And BXD&D, the simplified version, earlier version of D&D before 3, 4, 5. I'd say that preferably for people who are new to solo RPGing, rules light systems tend to be the best, in my opinion. But then comes the second part of the question. Rules heavy games. And I completely understand with their comment saying that it disrupts the narrative. It's true, it can. I don't play rules heavy systems here often, if not at all, if at all. I have heavy systems, and I'm still trying to find Rollmaster. I have found some supplements. But for me, I think my most crunchy system is probably Palladium and GURPS, which I have played, or at least made a character with GURPS, so I know GURPS a little more than Palladium. Palladium is early 80s, bounced off from D&D's fame. But in terms of going through the book and all the rules and crunchiness, I really admire it. Have I played it? No. Not in full. Combat confuses me. I know the general idea that it's a D100 roll under percentage system, but I haven't had the effort to go into the game like full on dive in. It is considered a crunchy system. So from what that commenter said, crunchy systems can slow down the process. But to some players, especially individuals who probably have vast OSR experience with original RPGs from the 80s and 90s growing up playing them, they're used to that. So it's second nature to them. Not for me, not at all. But I like them. I enjoy getting the crunchy systems and looking through the books and admiring the potential of nostalgia that I never experienced myself. So I, again, recommend rules light systems, but don't shy away from complicated or crunchy systems like sim-like games. If you grab a book, if you find a system like Palladium, Rules Master, Hard Master, grab one copy if you can. Don't overpay. If you just happen to come across one, give it a read. You don't have to play it. You don't have to jump in. Just give it a read, give it a scroll. Even if you download a PDF, see what your thoughts are. If you're comfortable with rules light systems, stick with it. But there again, individuals who have the know-how to play rules heavy systems solo. And that's part of the charm. They're playing the game solo and they are expecting the rules to be crunchy, and so they put the time into the crunchiness. From what I heard from other YouTubers talking about crunchy systems, they reflect on their past experiences playing crunchy systems where a combat round, an encounter, took an entire night, 4 to 5 hours, based on games like Rollmaster, which players from the past call Chartmaster. The game is so complicated, it has tables for everything. And again, that's part of the charm. A lot of page turning, people love that. So there's really not talking, I'm not talking down either approach. Rules light, or even systems that are in between, like Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds can be seen as rules light, but there is a lot of dice rolling and a lot of mechanics in that. That is a great way to build up what you want to use and what you want to keep out. So like a modular system, try that too. I'm trying to think of modular systems off the top of my head, but I think Savage Worlds is a good attempt because it has a bunch of supplements. Kind of like, I mean, Palladium does have a lot of supplements, but GURPS is another example that even though I mentioned GURPS is a crunchy system, once you get past the character creation process, the game can be seen as straightforward if you allow it to be. It is modular where there are advanced combat, there are rules you can keep in or keep out, choose how you want to play. So I think GURPS might be a good gray area to try if you graduate. Again, I'm not talking down about rules light, just if you graduate past rules light and you want to attempt the bigger systems. But with rules light systems, which again, BX D&D can be considered part of to an extent, like a gateway drug to D&D, AD&D, etc. It's rulings over rules. So rules light systems allow you to create your own rules, at least agree with the GM or yourself if you're playing solo, on the spot. Like what makes the most sense? Just roll advantage or roll disadvantage with because my character's a fighter? I mean, you can contemplate on the spot. You're not bound by the rules in the book if it was a crunchy system. So I hope that answered the question, or at least um, partially answered, but I feel like we covered that question in general. So, but again, there has been very positive remarks on that channel, on that video, and I am very grateful for the interactivity. Probably the most comments I've seen in a while. My videos usually get 3, 4, 6 comments at most, but getting like 10 plus to me is record breaking. So thank you. Now, this video, I hope can serve as a continuation from that video, because in that video I talked loosely. My usual tangents did kick in a lot, but like it says, let's talk about building the interest in playing RPGs solo. There were other comments in there where players were relating, but also questioning. So not questioning in a bad way, just questioning like, what's the point? So here is what I want to do. I have my whiteboard here on the table, and I got some keywords. Whoops. I got some keywords on the table itself. We have why, how, when, and where. These, I feel, are very important to playing RPGs solo. So from this moment, I want to talk to my viewers as if they are new to RPG, to solo RPG. If you have an interest, if you've never tried it, if you have attempted a few times, or at least if you just started, I hope this can help inspire you. I'm not a beacon of experience. I have been playing only for a year and a half plus, a year and a half to 2 years. And as you can see at the flickering screen, I have a very low budget, but I've made lots of videos and I feel like I've learned a lot myself. So I hope to give information in this workshop style video, what I've learned based on these 4 keywords. So let's talk about the first one. Why? What I'll do is put that right in the middle here. Why? That is the main, that's probably the first question people ask themselves who have played or know about tabletop RPGs, but mostly in group settings. Why would you play by yourself? It's a very good question, and that's something I asked until I discovered Me, Myself, and Die, the Trevor Duvall channel, one of the most popular solo D&D channels, or sorry, D&D RPG channels out there. When I found this channel, it was actually a top reason list as to how to get started playing solo RPG, and I will try to remember to put that in the description below, or at least in the comments as a spotlight. But that video got me hooked on his channel, and then discovering the magnitude that flanks off of it to other YouTubers out there, like my own. So, if you are new to this, first off, welcome. Sorry it took me so long to get to the very topic of the video, but I wanted to mention that comment first. Why? Because it's fun. That is the most I can say about why before I ramble on to some other subtopics regarding why. Because it's fun. So let's write that down here. Fun. Hobbies have to be fun. You have to have an engagement factor. It has to keep you hooked in. It's like you're watching a movie. If the movie sucks, you're going to leave the theater. So you have to make it fun. But it's not that easy. You can't just say it's fun. There has to be ingredients in the stew. So with that, it is the circumstance that puts you, when you play, I'm sure I spelled that wrong, when you play RPG solo, something personally, or like the Three Stooges, Curly says, I'm a victim of circumstance, something puts you in that situation that you need or you want to try, or you don't have an option to play tabletop RPG solo. Let's say, like myself, I am I'm an introvert. I do not go out to or make new friends, go to clubs, bar hop. I don't do any of that shit. I'm very to myself. I have a small circle of friends, a small group that I've known for years, and we all have similar hobbies, similar interests, etc. So that is, I would say, is the circumstance as to why I play solo RPGs. I don't, even though there is a plethora of game stores in my area, I just don't want to go play with groups. I found a love for this topic, for this hobby, playing solo RPGs myself. At the same time, it's ironic because there are hundreds of channels like my size, thousands of, I'd say probably thousands of channels that play RPGs themselves from all over the world. That's very inspiring. I mean, holy shit, that's very inspiring. I'm not the only one. It's like, when I saw that, I'm like, wow, this is a niche topic, a hobby. And then realizing as I continue playing for another year or so, it's not a niche. I called it a niche at times, but no, it's an ever-growing hobby, and it's definitely becoming wider spread. I think part of it might have been the pandemic too. I mean, pandemic was shit for everybody. We all became secluded keyboard warriors at home, and you know, pandemic was again complete shit show. But besides that, I believe that also had a factor, small, maybe 50%. Not the entire reason why I hopped on solo RPGing, but I started this solo RPGing hobby well into the pandemic, or at least when everything started to open back up. The pandemic itself kept us close from the real world. So, naturally, board games, RPGs, sales skyrocketed for many companies like D&D. The interest peaked, and I hopped on the bandwagon for D&D until discovering that there are other games out there, and I'm glad I did. So, the circumstance is a huge factor. Whatever the reason may be, if you don't have access, if you live in a rural area and you don't have access to a game store, if your friends live all over the country, wherever you live, what other country you live in, all over the states in my case, or they're not available, they have family situations, medical reasons, whatever it may be, this is another reason to play solo. It's because you don't want to miss out on the experience or learning of RPGing due to limitations in your own situations. It's not a bad thing. I'd say make a positive out of the situation. So circumstance is a big reason. Now, let's also add this little thing here, the dollar sign. This is, I'm going to cross off Y because we took care of that, or at least in process of. This depends on how you want to approach it. For me, I wasted a lot of money buying books because I prefer physical copies of these games. I have a lot of dice. I went through a Warhammer one-page rules phase the past month or so. Still enjoying it, and I still play it on the side. But that costs a lot of money. And it always fell within my spending habits. Not like excruciating debt, but when I wanted to go buy a book, or at least find an RPG book, I took the effort to drive around and look for an RPG book. So I'd say be prepared to examine how you want to approach this. And here's what I mean. This might actually lead into how. Let's branch off the bubble here. So, how? Are you going to play RPGs digitally or traditional tabletop? Arguably, digital is the cheaper method. Roll20 is a very popular virtual tabletop, and it's free. There is a paid version, but for the most part, you can have all the tools you need for free. It's a huge community, has a huge amount of actual rules on there that you have to pay for, but there is a little thing called one-page RPGs. These are fascinating. So there's a website that I'll write on here, not a sponsor, called itch.io. This website has a plethora of one-page RPGs. Most of them are free. The really good ones cost a couple bucks. I'm a big customer on the website. I have dozens and dozens of one-page RPGs that are mostly free. I've paid for a few. But again, you can play for free. And there is virtual dice online for free. Hell, Google has a a dice roller built into its search browser, to its search engine. There you go. You don't need to go out and buy virtual dice. But on the flip side, if you want to experience the traditional method, conventional method playing on a table, and it's up to you. Again, solo, I'm assuming you're not playing with other people, you can try both. With the traditional tabletop method, it will cost some money. Depends on what you buy, though. You can find cheap D6 dice. You can buy some dice from a local game store for probably 10, 12 bucks, a full set. You might have to get a little more D6s and D20s, though. Depends on what you look for and what dice you get. Their prices of dice can vary from a few bucks to hundreds, depending if they're made out of like freaking adamantium. It's like, it depends on what kind of dice you buy. The books, depends what systems you want to buy. It can be $5 for rules light systems, or 10, 12, 20 bucks. Then you're getting into the $50 range for classic books or bigger box sets, etc. It entirely depends on how you approach this. And for me, I tried it all. I have a growing collection of RPGs. Nowhere near actual like collectors out there, but at least dozens and dozens of RPGs from all facets and eras and styles. And I'm happy I don't regret a minute of it. But again, I tried digital on my YouTube channel. I've tried all digital, AI, tabletop. I love them all. To me, I prefer traditional, but then there's phases of me like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try digital for a bit, see what happens. So if you're trying to save, if you don't want to spend too much money, do digital. See how it works out. Roll20, Google Docs, get a dice roller. There are apps online, and give it a shot. There's your tools. And again, itch.io, I highly recommend because it also has oracles and tables. So let me put that in here. This branches off here. So oracles and tables. We have the Roll20. We have virtual dice rollers, virtual dice. So And Roll20 has the virtual dice built in, and it actually rolls on the screen. D&D Beyond, if you strictly just want to play D&D 5e, there you go. D&D Beyond has the character sheets built in the actual website with the dice roller in the character sheet. And all the math is done through the character sheet because when you click the button on what you're doing, the dice are rolled. So again, D&D Beyond is all kind of an all-in-one. Not a full campaign manager, but at least for your character sheet. So there's a huge amount of tools online that really fits into the how you would play solo RPGs. RPG solo. Now, I think that's a good amount of talk for how. Now the big question is when. This really depends on timing. So this actually adds really well with circumstance. If you are a doctor or nurse and you work 80 hours a week, it might be tough. But with some others who, depending on what your job is, like I work full-time and I have usually the nights off, that's when I usually make these videos. If you have a day off at the weekend, if you have a spare hour or two a week, try it then. It's all in time management. And I'm not here to talk or school people about how to sort your time appropriately. Timekeeping 101. That's not what my channel is about. We all have different situations, different jobs, families, circumstances, health matters, etc. Living situations. That's not what I'm here to talk about or judge on. We all have different situations, but the why is also a huge factor and probably drives away a lot of people who are interested, and that's unfortunate. So there's not much to write here because it all depends on personal matters. I'll write down personal situations, or at least personal time, because there are games out there and methods to play RPG solo. For example, Ironsworn is a favorite of mine. The game is very focused on narrative. Inventory is tracked through an abstract method, but it has a built-in solo engine. It's literally part of the DNA. And you can play the game for an hour and step away for a few days and come back to it again without losing notice. But how? Let's go back to how for a second. Note-taking. Journaling. This actually, put a little asterisk here, because journaling is actually a kind of a cousin of solo RPGing. If you want to say solo RPGing is the umbrella, I'd say journaling is the handle, because note-taking is very recommended when you play RPG solo. You don't want to forget about very important details. You don't have to go write a novel. If you do, great. Solo RPGing probably is a great tool to help authors, writers, because then you play the game and you can make a book off of it. There you go. There's another reason to play RPG solo. But journaling is exactly as it sounds. There are games out there that actually are solo journaling games. For me, note-taking is very important. Even if it's a one-shot, you want to take notes on important characters you run into, vital story plot points, quest items, quests themselves, things that happened, keep track of your encounters. There are a few other things you can track, but like story threads. But then there's a system called Mythic, the Mythic GM emulator. It is probably the best tool out there that allows you to play an RPG without a game master. That's why, hence, it's called the GM emulator. So I will also write down here with Mythic. Now let's go back to when, because I feel like I kind of strayed off track here and pulled us back here a little bit. There are some steps here. Like I said, you need time to devote. You need time to put into this hobby. First is research. Find YouTubers who, I've talked about this too in a previous video, like my top 5, I think, favorite solo RPG YouTubers. I recommend that if you want to get some examples. But find a YouTuber like Me, Myself, and Die, Trevor Duvall, or Bricks, Books, and Boards with Justin, that spend time actually talking about RPGs and then playing solo sessions to give you inspiration. Inspiration was a big part of my last video that I mentioned in that comment from the start. That will inspire you, and maybe enough to dedicate some time, which is when, to attempt a solo RPG session. So, do some research. You don't have to do much. Just find a channel, get inspired, search YouTube for solo RPGing, and I'm sure you'll find something. Then spend an hour or so, perhaps, looking online for Oracle tables like the Juice Oracle or the One Page Mythic, or there are a plethora of tables that you roll to that helps you develop the context of the adventure so that you're not doing all the heavy lifting. Tables are fantastic, and they can be set for a certain setting. So if you want to play dark fantasy, or if you want to play apocalypse, post-apocalypse, cyberpunk, there are tables, again, on itch.io that I recommend you can search for and can help you develop plot twists and encounters and contexts and character creation, etc. It doesn't have to all come from here, but well, I'm sorry, let me walk that back. It does all come from here. The tables help spring that idea to life. It inspires you to develop the idea yourself. My personal favorite is One Page Mythic. It is a simple action descriptor, D100 chart per side, and that always helps. I love it so much. So, when dedicate some time for looking for resources. If you prefer traditional play tabletop, go to a game store, find some RPGs that look like they're just rules light enough to try, and then set up a time to actually try it. So you have the game, you have the dice, you have the paper and pad, whether it's digital or not. You're ready to go. Roll some dice, use the tables to get inspired, see how the game starts, but don't forget to make the character. So, you know what? I'm going to put that here. This might be between the three. Make the character. Making the character is easily the most monumental moment, the biggest thing about solo RPGing. Heck, it could be the entire hobby if you want. I know people that just make characters. They don't actually play the characters, they just put all the time into making the backstory, the character stats, and then roll up a new character. They just love that. And that can be a hobby in its own. So again, like solo journaling. But make the character, obviously. You can't make the story without the character. So I almost forgot about that. That's the most important thing, is to make the character sheet itself. So, sorry, I had a phone call. All right, back to characters. The character creation process itself might actually be a jolt of inspiration that you need to create the story, because you can create the narrative off of the character. Or you can throw the character into some chaos and then let it evolve from there. Chaos and order is a big part of solo RPG. You need the chaos to give the character a reason to adventure, to create the story itself. Now, let's jump to the last one, and that is where. So we did when. Now the next one is where. If I could spell. Where. All right. This one is debatable, especially for me. I think about this one a lot because I wish I had the funds to have a studio, to have an actual, not to record at home, but to actually have a studio, my own large room with multiple cameras, a large table, a backdrop that doesn't involve this stupid background remover effect on Mac, but an actual studio. But that's a dream. We don't all have access to that, but might be people out there who do have a spare room and a large table and space for books and dice and characters and models, etc. So where to do this? Well, if you have a personal computer at home, a laptop, you can simply, and if you want to play digital, you're all set. You can play these RPGs online, on digital. But if you prefer to play on table and space is limited, that's a tough one. You might have to make space. I can't say that because I just don't know your situation, but there has to be a way. For me, this is my living room table, or sorry, my kitchen table, and I use this for multiple reasons, for multiple things. So when I make these videos, I clear it off and I put the arch here that has my camera facing down, which is this view here, to make the video. And when I'm done, comes off. So, and it happens a lot. But for everyone else, it's a tough one. I'm assuming for most people, it'll be at home. It'll be at their computer desk, either on a computer or on a table in the living room. It can be anywhere. So where, it depends on the situation, but might not be the most thought of, but could be the most difficult. So let's put down those two mentions here. We have table at home. We have on the computer, on PC, etc. It just depends on where you can play. Now, if you work, depending on your job, if somehow you find space at work to play an RPG session when there's nobody there, I don't know. I can't say it. I can't recommend it. I don't know. But if that's somehow in your general possibility, hey, go for it. But don't quote me on that. I'm just saying that I'm assuming there are people out there that probably have some downtime between shifts, and they might have a spare table. They give it a shot, and there's nobody there. Again, it entirely depends on your situation. So we have the big four here that I feel like cover, in my opinion, a very disorganized approach to this video. And that's generally how my videos are. I don't edit these. I don't have these really scripted, but I have a general idea what I want to do. But I hope that these four help you understand what goes into playing RPGs solo. Again, the why, because it's fun, and perhaps there is some situations, you're a victim of circumstance that you can't play with others. So you're giving the idea a shot to play solo. How do you play? Well, you can play on the computer with Roll20 or on the table. Use note-taking, use oracles, get some dice, whether it's virtual or actual dice, and most importantly, I almost forgot, game rules. You need a game to actually play the game. I can't believe I forgot to put that in there. But how is probably the most involved. Then, when? You'll have to make some time. If you have time, excellent. If you don't, that's a tough one. I'm hoping this hobby does not cause any problems. But if you're willing to put the effort in, then maybe there is some time. I can't speak on your behalf. That's really up to you. Then where? Again, probably the least considered one, but this one could be a deal breaker for a lot of people. I feel like it's the lesser known one. Maybe to most, it's when they don't have the time to do it. That's also that's also a possibility. But how is probably the most thought of. Why is the obvious. When and where could be tied with the most problematic. So I'm not trying to, it's hard to explain. I'm not trying to talk this topic down or cause any, I'd say, misfortune with the attempt at playing RPG solo, but I will promise you that in the end, if everything goes as planned, if you actually are able to get the game ready, get your character made, play the whole session out, if it's a one-shot or short campaign or a long campaign, I promise you, it will be fun if you let it be. Because I can say that, easier said than done, but if you enjoy it, that's positive. But there are problems. I don't want to make this sound like a double-edged sword. That's what I'm thinking about, the double-edged sword. It can be fun, but also, in my case, at times, it becomes a chore. And not because I'm making videos on YouTube about it, but actually taking the time and then if I don't feel like the narrative is going well or the adventure is going as planned, then I'm too hard on myself. Don't do that. I have a tendency to do that a lot, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Do not be hard on yourself. Don't feel like you are the player, the game master, and the audience wrapped up in one. It's your game. It is your story. If you do not like it, how it's going, change it. You are the one who's judging it. You are at the wheel. You can change it. Again, for me, there's times I'm too hard on the situation or what's happening in the video. Thousands of times, I guarantee, well, I might be exaggerating, hundreds of times, I have probably hit that stop button recording because I was just pissed off. It did not work out too well. But I shouldn't be. Like, why should I be angry if this one shot or the short campaign I want to jumpstart did not work out? Just move on to the next one or try again. So, yeah, I'm sure this is true in a lot of hobbies, but just don't take it too seriously. Try to have fun. Try to take it easy with it, and don't do what I do and cancel the idea, move on to the next one too fast. So I hope that advice helped. I know it kind of came out late there, but I hope all of this helped. I feel like I covered a lot of ground, and I'm sure there's so much more to talk about. But again, my channel, this is a workshop, this is a brainstorming video. I'm not making a how-to solo play 101. I want to just hope people did not get the wrong impression when clicking this video, but I'll try to have my title be direct and honest, not clickbait. So I feel that's it. And I hope this was a good sequel to the prior video I talked about, and like in closing. And please, as always, share your experiences and anything that relates to this. I welcome it. And as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.